Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good day. How are we all doing today? Maxwell, Jack, Kano, how are you doing? How are you doing? Welcome, welcome. Welcome back, Michael. Hello, hello. Ross, good to see you. Good to see you. Nimby, I hope you're all well. Had a busy morning shoveling snow. You can still see behind me. There's a fair bit of it. Good day, Vlado. Good day, Tyson. Good day to you all. How are we? Who did I vote for? I didn't vote for president. I didn't vote for any president yesterday. I did not vote for a president. What's good? Hello, hello. Thank you for nice comments on the haircut. Yeah, I enjoyed yesterday very much the watch of the unexpected win yesterday, you know, was incredible. Of course, I'm talking about Amorim beating Pep Guardiola, of course. Is Rudy suffering? I'm sure Rudy is suffering a little bit today. He'll move on though. What if Amorim keeps playing Rashford on the right? We could talk about that too, actually. Appreciate the good work. Been here since before you had 100 subs. I mean, that means a lot. It's I never thought I would end up doing anything with YouTube and all that way when starting things, and I still don't know what I'm doing half the time. So I appreciate that so much. Man United 4-1 City. Football healed a little yesterday. You've been here since I had 5? Wow. When Pep starts making digs about Champions Leagues, you know, you're on the right track. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, there's a number of things I want to talk about today. Number one, I want to talk about thanks, guys. Okay. What do I have on my agenda? Let me just flip over real quick. I want to talk about the win. I want to talk about some of the concerns I still have over the squad makeup with Sporting compared to ours. Transfers, injury returns, and then, you know, Yap. Of course, Yap is an important part of our I set aside Yap time. I set aside Yap time in today's live, okay? I set aside Yap time, so we'll have time to Yap. We'll have time to just Yap about anything and everything. I always think that's good. Truth in Goretzka rumors, looking for young lines. Yeah, we can talk about all that for sure. Just giving people a little time to get here. A little time to get here. I don't particularly, you know, Puttenberg does a lot of selling those Bayern clients to he does a lot of that. He does a lot of that. He does. I saw there's a story about Quenda. I want to talk about him and some of the other people as well. I want to talk about that for sure. Kone will be with the under-19s tomorrow. That's good. That's good. Hopefully you can continue to get some minutes to keep playing. Just fix a couple things here. And then we'll get started. Quenda sounds like a taco. Interesting take. Interesting take. Make sure, you know, prepare any kind of questions and things y'all want to talk about as well when we get into it. How's the snowfall where you are? Yeah, we've got about 6 inches here overnight. Give me like 2 seconds and I'll be right back. All right. Sorry. Empty chair stream. Okay. All right. Why is it snowing already? It's Colorado. It's Colorado. It snows here around Halloween every year. So it's about that time. Yeah, we gotten a lot in the mountains already, and it's going to be snowing tomorrow, the next day, so should be fairly busy. Okay, what do we want to do? Yeah, first thing. So I have a small intro to kind of lead us into our first topic of the day, made by Jevin. This one's a little bit unhinged. This one is a little bit unhinged. And then, I want to talk about all the Amorim stuff, talk about him, his style, all of this kind of stuff. So, yeah, ready? We'll watch this very short little introduction, and then we'll get to chatting.
Quando começar com o Manchester United. Se nós amanhã ganharmos, vão pensar que chegou o novo Alex Ferguson.
That's it. Okay. That's it. A nice little short intro. semi unhinged. But yeah. That's it. Yeah, this is live. Yeah. This is I always do these ones like this are live when I do it in this kind of format. My video ones that are not live are more you can rewind. I just did it. Anyway, yeah, so there you go. There's the intro. Honestly, I'm incredibly excited about it because Amorim's the real deal. I mean, it's not even just a win yesterday, but like the guy is absolutely the real deal. There's no way around it. He's just fantastic. He's just fantastic. And, I've put out a lot of stuff for the last couple of weeks of what's very different about this appointment. What's very different about what he's accomplishing and why, for me, I don't see it the same as any time before. And I'm honestly, very much, like, I've had different opinions at different times, right? I've had different opinions on different times when you look at how we play, managers, things like that, right? So when we had, Van Gaal, for instance, right? I figured, all right, you know what? Like, the squad isn't good enough. I broke this down in a video the other week and my views on this, and that he was building something, but that the way he was playing was very unexciting, and that I don't think it was something that even in the long term, United fans and such would have accepted. And you go to Jose Mourinho, I thought he as a manager was let down. I think that the squad wasn't so good. I'll talk about that exact comment, thank you. That the squad wasn't so good, that he had to build a lot, and that he was really let down in terms of the overall transfer strategies, right? However, like under Ollie, I thought that the limitations were Solskjaer's, as a coach. I thought the limitations were his as a coach as well. I thought that we had good players and that we were continuing to build a good squad, but that when he tried to take the step to more attacking football, that he didn't have it in him, in terms of from a tactical, strategic standpoint to take it to the next level. I think Ten Hag was the worst of the lot in terms of all of the last 5 managers tactically. I think he was of the 4 permanent managers, he was the worst of the lot from a tactical standpoint, and that the squad was being not just underutilized, but completely minimized. I won't feel that way about Ruben Amorim. And I said this during the live stream yesterday, because I've watched a lot of Ruben Amorim. I know exactly how good he is as a coach. I know exactly what he wants to do. I know the style of football that he wants to play. And I will put my self on a line with this part of it, which I said yesterday, which is that if Amorim comes in, it's going to be on the players because he has a very, very stringent way of playing football. And when you watch him play, you watch against City, all of that. I have a very different take in watching that game to what some of the takes were there, having watched him consistently. I thought that especially in the first 10 to probably 20 to 40 minutes, the players were poor. So I see people saying, "Oh, we don't have the players to play like that." We don't have the players, and I think that's absolutely nonsense. First of all, they have 1/10 of our budget, quite literally 1/10 of our budget. But the players weren't stunning. Their goalkeeper was making enormous errors in the first half that were making it really difficult for them. The goal that was scored by City was an error from a midfielder. It's all of those things. But more importantly as well than the tactical is that you can see that every single person buys in to Sporting's way of playing. Every single person buys into Sporting's way of playing when they're out there. And the setup from minute one was perfect, was exactly, and I say perfect in that it was exactly what he wanted. Exactly what he wanted. It was exactly what his view of how they should play would be. And every single person bought into it. And when I did the video on the coaches as well, you can watch that, and I went over some of the comments made by some of his coaches and some of the people that he's worked with. And the biggest strength that Amorim has is his communication and connection and motivation to players. And so when I take all those factors and I say, okay, here's a guy who I know can get across. And he also does all his trainings in English, by the way, so it's not a language problem. He knows how to communicate to players in English to get his ideas across to them. That's not an issue. He knows how to foster loyalty, how to foster drive, how to make people like him, want to fight for him, want to battle for him, want to die for him, on the pitch and want to run through walls for him, which is a very necessary aspect. He cares about the people there. He tries to get the most out of them. He tries to foster a positive culture, and he does an amazing job of it. So if you cannot buy into that, then it is on you entirely. There's no excuse for that. There are excuses and valid reasons why people would not have understood or connected with Erik ten Hag at United. And but there aren't under Amorim. It's the first time, given how much I know about him, that I will personally say, because you guys know I tend to be somewhat light on the players, but this is the first time that I would genuinely say, look, if you can't get on under Amorim, it's 100% on you and nobody else. There's new ownership. The entire football structure has been redone from top to bottom. He'll bring all of his coaches, young guys who can connect with these players, 28, 29 years old. If you cannot put your ego aside and get on board and listen, it is 100% on you. That's it, and nobody else. And I strongly, strongly stand by that. Now, obviously, there's a difference between saying that and saying that for sure he's going to be a success, or for sure that, his tactics are going to mean we're going to win everything or something like that, right? But every single game with Sporting, no matter who they are playing, there is an identity. There is a buy-in, and there is a way of playing that they all stick to. This is kind of just giving a little Ten Hagism on this. They all stick to the plan, and there's very much a plan, and it never changes. It is exactly what they're supposed to do, and they do it for 90 minutes. But it's clear, even again in the first half, I thought Sporting performance-wise was poor. Their center backs were really shaky. Their midfielder Hirota was very shaky, gave up a goal. The goalkeeper was poor, but the tactical plan was there, and they all stuck by it, and that kept them in the game and raised the floor of it. And even Gyökeres missed a one-on-one in the first 25 or 30 minutes. Ignacio wasn't on the pitch. He's one of their best players, and so they did it anyway. And that's what I've noted in every single Sporting game. The concepts of his style of play are always there. The same patterns, the same attacks, the same defensive structures. It was really funny watching like the goals they scored, because they were so quintessentially Amorim goals. Even on the counter, even in transition, he has an exact pattern, this out, kind of in, out, where, the forwards will come inside the ball, run out to make space, striker runs into the hole, ball goes in there. It's the same attacks they do in the final thirds. It's the same attacks they do in the middle thirds. It's the same attacks they do in the counter. It's pattern, 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 over and over. And that's what his teams do. So if that doesn't happen at United, it's on the players, because I know he knows how to coach it. And he's the most system manager that we've seen at United. He was the most, now, like Jose had it, of course, was also a system manager, and you could see his identity on the pitch, but he had these other things going on as well, and I think the system wasn't very exciting. Van Gaal was a very system manager too, and you could at least see that there was a system under Van Gaal, even if we didn't like it. Amorim is a really stringent system manager. He does not alter it much. He does not change it much. He does the same thing every single game regardless. And it's the same idea. So even when they're playing against City and they can't get much of the ball, it's the same way of attacking. It's the same way of trying to score goals. It's the same way of doing everything. And I think that really matters. So regardless, that's, I definitely put it on this point of, if it cannot be done, if they cannot buy in, if we do not see that strong identity, and it doesn't, I'm not saying we're going to have to be great right away, but it doesn't take that long. He won the league in his first season at Sporting, and it wasn't like they were already on track to winning it. Essentially went invincible as well. That was the first title in 19 years. He changed them from practically day one. I do expect impacts, and I do expect, with the time that we have, that before the end of the season, we should know who's bought in and who's actually doing it. The other thing is the adjustments that he's making, which is a really good point, the midfield adjustments. In all of the games that I've watched, he makes in-game adjustments that work, and almost always at halftime. He in a cup game last week, he made 3 subs at halftime. They were already doing well, but he made the 3 subs and then they dominated. In this game, he made a slight adjustment to shore up the middle. And the biggest thing that really, really identifies him, and that is going to be that changes our biggest weakness, and it's how he beat City, because it's the same way Solskjaer beat City, and it's the same way that Pep has struggled for a long time, and it's why I believe strongly that his style will translate to the Premier League, especially from a defensive standpoint. Even if it takes us a little longer to work out the attacking patterns, we will defend well, is block the middle. Block the middle. That's his defensive structure. It's all about blocking space in the middle. It's all about taking away the middle. There was nothing for City in the middle, and they have tend to struggle against teams that just completely shut them down in the middle of the pitch and load up with as many men as possible in those kinds of defensive positions. So very smart, very tactically brilliant, all of that. Now, he made obviously some comments, right? Because what did he say? He said that there were some quotes, and they were taken a little bit out of context, because he said some things in Portuguese as well, and it didn't all come through. But we had someone watching, and he basically said, you can't take anything much from this, because I can't play like this with Sporting versus Sporting versus, at Manchester United, basically. And a lot of people were taking that to say, oh, he's not gonna change. Like, people are like, oh, he's going to change his tactics. He's not going to play that way. That's not what he was talking about. He specifically said in a different segment in Portuguese that what he was saying is that he cannot defend as much, because it's a club that demands more. This is what he's talking about. He cannot go into games with Manchester United and aim for 27% possession. I mean, 4-1 against City with 27% possession is absolutely incredible as a performance, and getting 6-2 on big chances and winning the XG. But this is the point. He knows that as a United manager, he cannot be aiming for 27% possession against good teams and defending so deep out of possession, essentially a deep block. That's all he was saying. That was it. He's not saying he's not going to take his tactics. Sporting dominate most games, but he knows, look, he's against a team that's 15 times his budget, that is Champions League winner. This is Sporting, and this is not even the Portugal of the past. And look at what he's doing here. But the point is, he's up against teams that are bigger, better, stronger, faster in these competitions, and is doing more. And so the point was there that he cannot play the same way. That was it. It wasn't about changing, or like, oh, the United players can't do it. You know what I mean? The point was, he knows that the pressures are there to perform at United and to become a top team. They need to be the City in this case, but obviously to execute better, not the Sporting in this case. So yes, but that being said, he does have strong principles similar to Jose Mourinho on controlling the game without the ball, which is a very strong Jose Mourinho principle, which is somebody he compares himself to for obvious reasons. That you can control the game without the ball, and that is a big part of it. So I thought it was an incredible win. I thought it was fantastic, and I think it actually, we do learn a lot about who Amorim is, and the biggest takeaway I have from all of it when I watched was, even in a defensive block, I've watched games they were dominating. Last week, some of the games they played against the worst teams in the cups and stuff, absolutely dominating. And then I watched City. It's the same thing. It's the same football. Even though it was a deep block and they didn't have the ball, it's the same football. It's so it's so systematic, and that's what is so encouraging about this, that we will have somebody who's actually, that is a system, and it will break this team and say, this is how we're going to play moving forward. But that's what he meant by those quotes. It's very clear on that. There's even some clarifications, I think, from a couple accounts today. I saw that MPB just put something out just a little bit ago talking about this. But I said that as well last night. But yeah, that's a big difference. That's a big difference. So yeah, and that matters, right? Because what we don't want is someone coming and saying, "Oh, I didn't come here to play the same way I played it, at Ajax." Like, no, then you shouldn't have come. That's not how it works. We want you to play the best brand of football and bring a solid system. But Ten Hag was actually, I think, a bit missold to United fans. He's never been a systems manager. He's always been a manager who's much more pragmatic, which is why he tends to be very good in cups. But the other things you can gather, obviously, from Amorim is how well he handles media, things like that as well. How well he handles media, how well he deals with things. People were up in arms about Gary Cotterill, and I understand, because it was insulting and all of that. But I was saying, on the podcast with Phil, like, the positive I take from it is how well he deals with these things. And then Gary Cotterill asks him a question in the post-match, and he says in English, right? And then answers. Like, you can't beat him. He kills him with kindness. Like, you can't beat him like that. And obviously when you're winning, it's a little bit easier, but he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. He's got the personality for it. And if he does get a little bit meaner at some point, it'll just send him a little bit on his Jose arc. And I'm okay with that too, because that is top tier entertainment. Okay, so now I have some concerns. I want to talk about the squad makeup, because I don't abide by the concepts and the ideas that say, the squad that Sporting have is better or something like that, or anything, right? It's nonsense. It's not true. But I do have some concerns that I've mentioned before in terms of fit. And there's a couple of things that stood out to me in this game where I still don't know exactly how it works in a couple of positions, right? When you look at the Sporting team, obviously in this game, they defended in essentially what was a 5-3-2. So one of these forwards was coming back. Now, I keep hearing people talk about these players as 10s. No, No. At best, one of them is a little bit of a hybrid 10. The other one is a very, 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 very much a winger that is playing inside stylistically. And I can back this up with some stats as well. I would also add, and one of the players I was most impressed with last night, and that I have when I've watched him, is Maxi Araujo. He is a winger. He was playing at left wing back. He did an incredible job against Savinho and then went on and scored a goal as well. He is a winger playing at wing back against Manchester City. So is Quenda, by the way. So if you don't think that Amorim might convert a winger into a wing back, well, here's your evidence. He was able to do it with Sporting, play with two wingers at wing back with Sporting against Manchester City and get a win. And that should be a little bit of an indication. A lot of wingers. These players are more primarily inside forwards, but I want to show you the characteristics of them that matters, because the biggest thing that Sporting do that I have noticed, and where I think it really suits our midfielders and it really suits our forwards, but it makes some confusion in certain areas, is this. They carry the ball. They carry the ball a lot. I mean dribble, not pass progression. They carry the ball a lot. A lot of their attacks, a lot of their transitions, a lot of their territory domination are keeping the ball on the ground and carrying it into the attacking areas from these wide areas or out. They'll find the striker drifting and things like that a lot, but they do a hell of a lot of carries from deep with these players, right? So, and now I want to show you the stats on this. This is why I keep saying I'm not sure what he's going to do on certain things. Here's Maxi Araujo, right? Look at the carrying. Take-ons and carries. This is him as a style, right, of player, and the number of passes attempts. That's one of their wingers. This is Trincao. Now, Trincao does a lot of passing, but look at how good he is at carrying the ball as well. Progressive carry, successful take-ons, all of that. He is also a fantastic carrier of the ball. That's one of your second inside forwards. Gonçalves is the least of them, okay? He does some carrying of the ball. He is definitely more of a passer. So this is the more similar player to Bruno Fernandes. Here's Bruno. He does not ever carry the ball, and he's one of the worst dribblers on the team. This is a little bit of an issue. He is more similar to Gonçalves, though. And so if you look at it in terms of role, you would have this, the number 8, being more like Bruno, kind of coming behind two inside forwards, one in Gyökeres, who does not really carry the ball, although he actually, let me pull his stats up as well. He's actually, he's not like bad at it or anything, but you know, he receives the ball in space a lot. He does dribble. He's actually a fantastic dribbler, come to think of it as well. So you have two very, very strong dribblers in that front three. This is Gyökeres. He shows up amazingly on everything right now, right? But having two wingers in full, but they just did it against Manchester City. So it's not in Portugal. They just did it against Manchester City in the Champions League, against the best team in England. They have won, what, 4 of the last 5 league titles. I understand they don't cross it, but that's why you have 3 center backs. It's for those back post crosses, almost explicitly when you read about his tactics. It's to defend the back post cross. That's actually why he runs 3. One of the reasons he likes it a lot. But so the makeup of this front 3 to me looks very much like the best. You know, it looks very much like the best bet is 2 forwards who are very good at carrying the ball and 1 forward who is a little bit more of a playmaker. And that tends to be it. But at the same time, he's also got these really, really strong carriers of the ball in the other areas as well. So, you know, the question is who obviously this suits in the team, right? And so you got to look at it that way, is that, okay, who are the players that are going to fit? it's still those kind of wingers. I think Rasmus Højlund is a pretty decent carrier of the ball. The stats on our players, by the way, are so bad. It's so hard to get a good picture in any recent times on our players because the stats are just horrific, right? But the good carriers of the ball from the forward line are, I would say, Garnacho, Rashford, and Ahmad. I think those are all three good carriers of the ball. Garnacho's good at carrying it from a bit deeper, which actually I think is why he kind of suits that wingback role from a forward standpoint, and Rasmus. So I really think those two positions fit, Rasmus Højlund, Marcus Rashford, Garnacho, and Ahmad. So 4 players for 2 positions, because Rashford could definitely play striker in this system, next to another player as well. I think those are 4 that could definitely fit into those 2 positions up top. I think that Bruno and Ahmad could fit that other kind of playmaker role as well, in that narrow forward. So those are the 2 players I would consider, in these positions, for the most part. And just in terms of the makeup of the squad, if I was going with like who fits the bill the best, who's the best fit, it's essentially this, and this is to me a little bit of a toss up between Bruno and Ahmad, but that's kind of what I'd expect. Now, yeah, Garnacho isn't good back to goal. One of the other things that these players do is dropping in a lot into the midfield to make, some of the one-touch passing play, things like that. Rashford actually does that quite a lot. Bruno can do that as well. These guys have to drop into the midfield a lot in the build-up. And so I think that these are the best fits for here, whereas I think Garnacho is probably the best wide player in the team. I think Garnacho is, personally. And when I look at like Maxi Araujo, from a lot of traits, very similar. Now, again, I understand. You look at the game yesterday, Araujo was doing a lot of defending, but he also scored the goal. However, that being said, against most teams, this wingback sits all the way up here, and that's why I don't see it as like this very defensive position. But when you look at like a Quenda, for example, like if you're comparing to how they played last night, this is your front 5. This is your team right here, this is the most comparable to the way that they actually set up in a lot of games, with 2 converted wingers, a left footer on the right and a right footer on the left. This is very, very comparable. He used a left footer, so like in one of their goals, their first goal to Gyökeres, the ball comes out to his left-footed winger who cuts in. Trincao makes this run, and the striker drifts into this space, and the ball comes through. That is a very typical play from them. These inverted kind of drifting runs, and them crossing sides. So it's really interesting, that dynamic, because if you make it the most comparable to how they set up, it's this. This is the most comparable setup to what they've done last night and what they've done in a lot of recent games. But yes, it requires a very big work rate out of those wide players. That is my concern as well. So I know, for example, we've talked about players that we can get into kind of transfers, but that being said, in the midfield, both we've gone over this a few times. In the midfield, both Kobbie Mainoo and Manu Ugarte fit perfectly, like a glove, into the team. They're both good carriers of the ball. They both do what they're supposed to. We've discussed the center backs. We don't really have to get into that. That is okay. Xerxes actually fits this role quite well too, by the way. I wouldn't be surprised to see Xerxes playing in a role like this either. He actually fits it quite well in somewhat of a playmaker role behind these 2 players, where he can get, back to goal, where he can turn the games in front of him and he can move it around. He suits this really well alongside 2 runners, 2 carriers in this. He actually does suit that quite well, and I'd be curious to see if he plays in that position. So this is the closest. We have Mazraoui, obviously, who I think would be excellent in one of these roles. He's very technical. He's excellent. I think he'd be so good on that left side. Like we saw him against Chelsea. I think he'd be so good at it. I also think he'd be so good at the right. So yes, we have a player for there. But if we're looking at what we really need, overall, I think we've got any of these 4 players can fit into this front line. I actually think we have a lot of options there. It's obvious that these are the question mark areas, right? These are the question mark areas. In the whole team, the question marks are these wingbacks. But they have played 2 wingers against wingbacks. It was against City. Now they didn't have control of the game with it. So maybe that's part of the reason why you'd want more well-rounded players, things like that, if you wanted to control the game a bit better. But that's what I look at and say, there's where I see the most similar stylistic setup to how they play. And if we want to play in very attacking games, we could do that. You could run Garnacho and Ahmad as the wingbacks in that system. You really could. It's not that different to Maxi Araujo and Quenda. And against smaller teams, the defending burden is not that high in his system. So that is my biggest curiosity as to whether that happens. Very much. Controversial take, but Mino doesn't have the energy for me. I think he'll be fine. I think he will be very much fine. What types of midfielder Amorim wants? One of them, he likes to stay more shielding in the defense, push players wide, tackle, move the ball around easily. His other midfielder, he likes to do the same, but also to get up and join the attack, to make some of those inverted runs, to crash the box. I think Kobbie Mainoo is a perfect fit for that. Correct. You're right. Amorim usually replaces and subs his wingbacks. He does it a lot. They're usually the first subs that he makes are in his wingbacks, and he'll even sub them at halftime because it is a tough position and because you have to make subs. Araujo did really well, and then he got subbed, and then his sub drew the penalty, from what I recall. But you could see, the energy was dipping and all of that, and he makes those changes a lot. So that's the benefit is, you start with that, you can make a change to a more defensive one or just to raise the energy levels. But it's certainly probably the most physically demanding position on the pitch, I would say. And I think that Garnacho has, in the past, shown the work rate and the tenacity for it. I understand where people are at the moment on him. I do. I don't disagree. I thought it was kind of shocking, and I thought the attitude aspect of what happened against Chelsea was worse than anything. Whining and throwing his hands up and asking to switch sides. I thought that was awful. There's video of it on Twitter going around right now, and I think that's just absolutely trash. But why the coach acquiesces to that? That's on the coaches. I've seen in the past Garnacho put in a shift no matter where he plays, and could do that role. So we will see. I think Mazraoui, his intensity, his work rate, his all of that does fit it quite well, and he's good. But yeah, Garnacho's heat map look, he's done many games where he's been really, really tenacious. Garnacho, right? He has. He just needs to be sorted out, and I think Amorim's one of the right guys to do that. Because he this is he's not gonna bow to something like that. He's not going to allow that. He will sort that. And I actually think that is one of the most, again, I've said before, it's not a defensive position. It's not a punishment position. It's one of the most important positions on the entire pitch. But Mazraoui and Garnacho as wingback partners would be, to me, incredible. If in the right attitude, you have so much tenacity, you have such an interesting balance on both sides. So I find that very interesting. Obviously, if Luke Shaw, does come back at any point in time, he would fit really well into this. Lenny Yoro is back in training, and he is such a perfect fit for this because one of the things, obviously, you have when you're playing more of a winger on this side is you need a really tough, fast, physical channel defender on this side, and that is Lenny Yoro. And that means that we could run out, this is a genuinely plausible team that we could play against Ipswich. Realize that. This is a very, very interesting team to me because against a team like Ipswich where we want to dominate, this is a team that could, you say you want goals. There's a lot of talent in this front five, and it's not just reliant on spraying the ball up to two players to try to get them on a goal, but there's a lot of work that can go into that. So I'm very, very interested. Euro won't be ready tomorrow, no, but he should be ready for after the break. He should be ready for after the break. He could get sub minutes on Sunday, and I'm sure he will be in it. But it's a very, very interesting team. But yes, I think realistically, especially in development, you're going to see Mazraoui in one of these positions, potentially Mazraoui and Dallo, just to get going. Because remember, the first thing that Amorim often focuses on is defense. Shore up the defense first. Make sure you're not conceding and leaking goals. That's what he fixed at Sporting more than anything in the beginning. And then press the attack and then putting it all together. So I think it's more likely, at the start that we would see this. Now, and look, Shaw could be back. He could be back. Don't know when. But it's more likely for sure, no disagreement from me, that we see something like this. We could see this on the first game back. And there's actually a good fits for this. And depending on, again, what I'm saying is depending on how attacking you want to go, how much you want to adjust it, and all of that, you have the subs to make it. You can put Garnacho into the front line. You can put Xerxes in here. You could put Garnacho or Ahmad into a wingback position if you want to get more out of it. You have Maguire to go in here. You have Johnny Evans who can go over here. Yes, Johnny Evans can play over there quite well. You have hopefully Mason Mount who could slide into one of these roles. Casemiro. There's actually a lot of fits when you think about it. There's a lot of fits when you think about it that could allow you to improve on the situation. Long term, I think that's the assessment, right? So going on to transfers, I did a video yesterday talking about how, as I understand it, that United are interested in potentially that they could spend money in January, that they could do business in January. That they could do business in January. And it's not fantasy. Quenda's 17, and he just did it against Manchester City in the Champions League, But regardless, United can do business. United can do business in January. They do have the ability to spend some money. They do have the ability to spend some money if they want to. They also certainly need a little bit of outs, especially when it comes to the midfield, because as I understand it, the two areas that they're most focused on initially are that left wing back side and the midfield side, and then the other position that they're looking at strongly for the long run is that kind of right wing back, right sided forward thing. Now, there's players who fit that, like Franco Mastantuono we're talking about. Quenda, obviously there was a story this morning about Quenda. It's a little bit bait, okay? There's every big team in Europe is tracking Quenda because he's looked at as one of the best talents around, and for good reason. He also has a 100 million release clause. He's also very likely not going to be sold anytime soon because they're going to want to build that value up because he's going to keep developing, okay? So I wouldn't think too much on that link at the moment, and also because Amorim is not really going to be rating Sporting either. But similar players. So yeah, I do also think, yes, a change of formation could break them because it's a very different thing. Nippon would be probably a little bit more of like that left-sided playmaker potentially. Quenda with a Q is the Sporting right winger who's actually played at right wing back most of the time, including yesterday. Frimpong makes sense. Yeah, Maxi Araujo is who that is. That left-sided attacker. Again, I think he's quite similar to Garnacho. Kirkes, yeah. So look, it's going to depend, and the way that the transfer strategy is going to work. There's names that work. Hayden Hackney, Rigg. These guys could all fit deep into the midfield, and they're interested in those types of signings. Adam Wharton. These guys can all fit into that deep role next to a 6 or next to Kabi Menu. The left wing backs that we've talked about, Kirkes, Ait Nouri, Gutierrez, Alvaro Fernandez, all people that they're monitoring, keeping an eye on, and considering moving for. And they could spend money in January. It's going to be very dependent on health and if they can get somebody out. Rig could be in a few different types of things. Mastantuono is similar to guys like Shea Lacey, these types of players as well. Agreed. But he may be more ready, and his physical flooring may be higher. So it depends. But these are all kind of gives you an idea of the types of profiles that we are looking at overall, right? These are the types of profiles that we're looking at overall, and then obviously that left-sided center back. Anything they could get done in the next in between January and summer, they will try to get done. They will try to get them done. And they can spend some money. And one of the issues that they're running into when you talk about like the stadium and all that, and one of the reasons, maybe contributing factors to it being delayed, is that there's an acknowledged necessity to invest more in the squad, an acknowledged necessity that, you know, a big part of being able to sell the whole idea of the stadium, of the regeneration, of, you know, creating the Wembley of the North, is that you can't be sitting in 14th fucking place in the Premier League after 10 games. You have to be back in the Champions League. You have to be climbing the table. You have to be the biggest games in Europe need to be back at Old Trafford if you're going to be able to sell people on funding this thing. And you're going to be able to sell people on the tourists coming, on the people from Europe coming, on, you know, everybody coming, on all of that. You're going to have to be able to sell people on that. And so United have to be back up the top in order for that to happen. So there's an understanding and a view, okay, we cannot, and I'm not saying in the long term you slow down, you stop investing in the squad, but there is a point where you can slow down. And it becomes not as necessary to do so much. But they recognize, okay, yeah, we need to finish this quicker. We need to accelerate again the timeline, and ideally in the next summer, finish this team, and get it to the point where it's ready to really be built with and to compete with this manager, and that everybody's new and that we've got the money there. And then those players, because you have to think, guys like the young players like Shea Lacey, Brighamov, Jay Fitzgerald, all of these people, these young kids coming through, they are the players you want where in 2 to 3 years, that's why you don't have to do a ton of transfers in 2 to 3 years, because you have them coming through, helping to fix some of the departing players. So it's just like ins matching outs and youth making up the difference. That's where you want to get to. They are not the solutions today. Okay. So we need to get these people. They do both. They cut in and they hold with. It really depends on the matchups and what he likes. Given the situations. So they're open to these things. They're open to making these deals. What they want out of Amorim, under the new kind of transfer setup, under the new transfer system, instead of like, oh, you veto, you pick your players, oh, we're going to target players that you like. Obviously, we've talked about that. They have a totally different transfer structure. What they want out of him, and this is what most head coaches do, is to look at his squad, look at these United players, look at this group that we've put together here, play them and say, who doesn't fit? Who isn't good enough? Which position do I need? I want my own assessments, because we might be sitting here saying, look, we don't know if we have the right fits on this side. He might put Mazraoui there and say, oh my God, he's the best player in this position I've ever seen, and I love him. He might put Garnacho and say, that's his position, and I need him there. He might look at this and say, okay, we need a new right back because I actually want an inverted one. Ahmad isn't physical enough. Dallo isn't good enough at certain things. He might. We don't know yet what his assessments will be of how good the players that we have are in certain positions within his system. And that is the role of a manager in more of the modern thing, is to say, where are people fitting best? Where are they fitting best? Where do we have the personnel that are going to make it? And where do we not? And that's on him to assess, to deliver, and say, yeah, these are my priorities, because they're going to have a list. They're going to have lists like we know for left wing back. They've got lists for deep midfielders. They've got lists for attacking right-sided forwards. They've got lists for right, I don't know about right backs, but maybe right wingers that could fit into that right side attacking forward. They've got lists for left-sided center backs. They've got lists that they're building for all of these things. But the priorities, that's where the coach has a lot of input into, because they're going to base it off of him saying, that's what we need more than anything, in my opinion, based on my assessment of the squad. So that's where things could change. That is the factor that we'll have to wait and see once he actually gets in there. Obi Martin, I'm sure. Obi Martin is 100% an Amorim striker. His big physicality is, all of that. Obviously, he's young, but he certainly fits the bill for that, for the future. So there's a lot. There is 100% a lot to be assessed by Ruben Amorim to determine where we are going with all of this. So realistically, yeah, you could think that the wide area players and the left-sided center backs are probably the biggest deal. One or two center backs, one or two fullback, wing back, wide players, and then at least one more midfielder too, because if Mount can't stay healthy, really all we've got is Casemiro that can fit into that. And that's why it might be urgent. In order to get a midfielder in, because I do not see how Eriksen can play. When you watch, his legs were already an issue. When you watch how Sporting play, holy cow, I don't see it. What I think about Antony in the system, he's fine. He's not good enough. As a fit, he's fine. He could go play in Portugal. He's not good enough. He's not good enough for the Premier League. It doesn't really matter about his fit. That's not really been the problem. The quality of his play is the problem. Injury returns. Chris Rigg, I think, is really interesting for that. I think we will go back for Braithwaite, yes. Look, the way that this works with every club, but definitely United as well, Braithwaite was a top target. We didn't get him. We'll look at him again next year because we didn't solve that problem, and it's even bigger of a need now. We've done that many times in the past. He's somebody that they really like. He fits the bill as a fast physical. Now, where he is a little bit weaker, where you might have some concern, is that Braithwaite's passing isn't that good. But it very much depends how we want to play, and if you can make up for it with some of the passing on the other sides, and if you think he can develop into a better passer. But it is a weakness for now. As of today, yes, the Liverpool links are accurate. I understand he's at Everton, but his family are actually all Liverpool fans. So miserable as they are that he's playing at Everton and nearly joined United, they would definitely encourage him to join Liverpool. But anyway, injury returns. It looks like we will nearly have a full squad. Looks like we will nearly have a full squad when Amorim takes over, and he will get to see a lot of these players during the break, which is awesome. Mount is back. Euro is back. Who else has been missing? Eriksen should be back any day. That's okay. Malacia is in and out of training. Shaw is still, I think, doing individual training, but he's expected to join the group during the break. Maguire should join the group during the break. But that means all those players are going to stay. So the players that are going to stick around during the international break are Rashford. I don't know if Ahmad will be going. Rashford, Casemiro, probably Mount, Shaw, De Ligt. I don't know if he'll go to the Dutch national team, considering the things that have happened. Lenny Yoro, because he's still rehabbing and still getting back up to fitness. I don't know about Mazraoui. So there's a good number of players that he'll get to see for the whole break, and then a lot. Kobbie Mainoo as well. Well, he should be back at some point during the break and won't be going. So yeah, we get a lot of players like Harry Maguire. A lot of players that he'll get to see. During the break for the whole time, potentially. They will have days off, but a lot of players during the break, and then and I'm sure a lot will want to work with him, meet him, get settled in, all of that. And then he should have a fairly full contingent when returning, and playing in that first game against Ipswich. And I think we'll get the biggest, massive, hugest clue on all of these discussions on the basis of how he picks that first team, especially those wing backs. I could definitely see him going more conservative and defensive with those wing backs, picking Mazraoui and Dallo or something like that, especially as we transition. I hope we go with the back three right off the bat. I really do. I understand that it takes more time to learn, but a lot of the players have played in it in the past, including a fair number of our center backs. Ugarte will be familiar. In England, Kobbie Mainoo played in a three back, in front of a three back. A lot of our players actually have experience in a three back, so you would think that they should be able to switch into that pretty quickly, and ideally we do, because like I said, I don't want to see small adjustments. Yeah, De Ligt has played it, Yoro has played it, Johnny Evans has played it, Mainoo has played it, Ugarte has played it, Shaw has played it. Yeah, that's a lot in terms of your core back line. Obviously, Onana played it, right? Because he was the goalkeeper. They played a three back at Inter, right? He was the keeper in a three back. Ahmad didn't really play at Atalanta, so Højlund has a little bit of experience there. Maguire, yeah, there's a lot of players that have done it for sure. So I think it should be a fairly simple adjustment for a lot of them. Shore up the defense and then move forward. Yes, and Rashford would have played it. He also would have trained in it a bit, long time ago, obviously, but under LVG, he would have trained in it at times too. But yes, he would have played with it in England as well. Same as Mount in that respect, that he would have played it in a little bit at Chelsea also. Yes, and under Conte and under Tuchel for a little bit. Yeah, Lissandro's done it for Argentina. There's three back is so common. I would say that obviously you want to work on the spaces with United, but most of the players have played in a three back at multiple points in their career, or even currently on national teams. So I shouldn't be too hard of a transition for them to do that, come to think of it. So hopefully he does, and then we'll get a clue. But I could see them going more defensive at the start. Yeah, so that's mostly who will be the center back who steps inside the midfield. De Ligt, Maguire, and then even potentially Casemiro as cover. Yeah, those would be the main people. Do I expect things to get better with Amorim right away? Yes. Yes. Almost instantly. The simplicity of, as a coach, him knowing what he wants, putting the players in the right positions, we will perform. We have much better players than the results we've been getting. Period. I'm not talking about whether we have a league-winning team or anything like that. We do not have a 13th placed squad. We do not. And simply putting players in the right spots to perform and giving them a little bit of encouragement, we will perform better. We will. I expect if we were like in second or third, changing the manager, I'd say, yeah, we're going to need to it's going to be a while till we see improvement. It's almost impossible not to see improvement on how things have been. But we will see improvement, and it will grow. Now, how long does it take to get his full system fully in? I think by the end of the year, he'll have it. And I think next year we're going to be really good. Yeah, 14th, and we haven't won a game in the Europa League. Like, give me a break. We got to be able to do better than that. He's just beat City with Sporting. What's happening with Ruud? He'll probably talk with Amorim and then decide what to do. But yes, there's a lot of coaches coming in. Let's move into the Yap. This could be off topic as well, anything, because let's move into our scheduled Yap time so I can answer any further questions and talk about things. Yoro should get minutes after the break. I mean, technically, if he's in full training, he could get minutes on Sunday, but he should be back after the break. I don't think what Mourinho has. Mount wasn't there for Conte. Okay, good to know. Thank you. Tuchel did play some back three there, and then obviously again for England. What has Mourinho done since he left United to justify the idea the club should? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They hired him. They put him in place. They backed him. They gave him a new contract. They should have given him players. It's that simple. It's like shooting yourself in the foot to, it's stupid. Cutting off your nose to spite your face. Like, it doesn't matter. Will the youth teams implement the 3-4-3? They could. I could definitely see it now. Obviously, the under 18s or however are doing so well. You might be reticent to want to change whatever they're doing. I don't think the 3 back itself is as important at the youth level, frankly. Well, okay. Do I see Anthony having value as wingback? No, I just don't think he's good enough. Personally, I thought the style of play was a question under Mourinho and Ollie. Yeah, under Mourinho it was mixed, but I thought the club did him pretty dirty. Xabi Alonso got spanked. Yeah, I mean, Arne Slot is doing a hell of a job over there, isn't he? Unfortunately. Yeah, youth level players move around a lot. It's quite different. Ahmad's contract situation. Look, if he can play and get confidence under Amorim that he has a spot in the team, he'll sign his contract. It'll be fine. You think we'll start with a 3-man midfield like Amorim ended with yesterday? Bruno deeper. Yeah, I think that's pretty normal. That's pretty normal. Yeah, they gave Jose Lee, Grant, Fred, and Dallo after finishing second, and Dallo was injured too. Remember, he had just had surgery. He wasn't even healthy. As Thomas Frank said, it's not about the formation, but principles and patterns. So maybe Youth League be adapt to his rules. Yes. Some people wanted the Stuttgart manager at United, but they're like, well, it's all relative. You got to always look at relativity, right? You got to look at relativity. Like, is that overachieving or underachieving for Stuttgart? Because I think they were almost relegated before Hoeneß came in. Or maybe they even were relegated at one point, not that long ago. I think it's the last chance for any player who's over the age of 23. They got to, like I said, if they cannot perform under this manager, it has nothing to do with personal, it has nothing to do with like, dislike, past, anything. If you're a senior player and you cannot perform under this manager, if you can't buy in, if you can't get it, then you'll go. Because they want to keep refreshing the squad. And so I think it's not about being last chance or something. It's more just like everybody needs to perform. I disagree with you about the work rate because of the understanding of what the instructions are. Everybody who ends up playing at left wing ends up doing the exact same thing, and it's instructional. When we see it under the next manager, then we can make a new assessment. What role do you see Rude taking up under Amorim if he has to stay? I'm not really sure. It would just be more of just another assistant kind of extra role, assimilation, maybe even temporary. You think Bruno doesn't fit in the system? Time to cash in. I wouldn't say he doesn't fit in the system. It just depends. He has some weaknesses that are things that the sporting players have as strengths. Who's your favorite all-time player? Wayne Rooney. Easy. Always. No doubt about it. Far and away, Wayne Rooney. I absolutely love the Bulldog archetype of player. And the fact that it was as an attacker and what he was, there's nothing like him. There's no footballer like Wayne Rooney out there, in my opinion. Yeah. Jude is Wayne alike? Hell no. Jude is a whiny little PR baby. He has nothing like Wayne Rooney. He has absolutely none of the dog in him. None of the dog in him. Vidic. Well, I mean, Vidic is in a similar archetype of personality, you know, at center back, just a killer. But I do like that. I love that as well, yes. Yeah, I mean, Rooney did everything at an extremely high level. Modern day Rooney, I don't think there is one. Like I do not think that player exists. You know, that style of player. It's so hard to see them. Like you see them a little bit in players like, you know, like I said, like I really like Fred. Obviously, he's not even in the same like zone of talent or type. But there's not a lot of players like Wayne Rooney. You know, who's a player that is that tenacious, who is that driven, but also that skilled? Yeah, Valverde is a very, very good player, a very similar, you can, you know, in some respects, but you do not find a lot of players like that. When did you begin following United? It was in like around the 98 or 2002 World Cup, something like that. When the United players caught my eye for England and around Beckham's rise to fame and things and all of that. So, because that's what you could get over in the States. That's what led me to United. You can pick one player that you would throw into his formation. 100% Wayne Rooney. Wayne Rooney in one of those attacking threes would be absolutely unbelievable. He can dribble, carry, play make, crash the box, do absolutely everything. Defend. He would do it all. He would do it all. He would be that's what makes him so unique. Like yeah, I wouldn't play him as a wingback, right? But any attacking position or attacking midfield position in modern day, Wayne Rooney would make his own and would probably dominate. There's just nothing. There's just nobody like that. I honestly cannot think of a player like that exists in a modern game. Obviously, there's, you know, he's not really a system player. I'm not saying he can't play within a system, but you know, so certainly more of old school. But you know, so he'd fit in a team like Madrid, obviously, but I just don't see anybody like him. In a way, I do get why one would say like the Valverde name was a good suggestion, because in one way I do get how he could be similar to him. You know, his tenacity, all of that, but it's hard. It's one of those players that I cannot find similarities between them. You know, non-attacker. Like as a midfielder, maybe Michael Carrick. I really liked Mike. I really loved watching Michael Carrick. And it's always going to be United as answers for the most part. There's very few players that no, well, no, I know, because they are attackers. Because like outside of Rooney, my probably second favorite player of all time would be Ronaldinho. But yeah, Nunez is the reason I like him so much, because he does have some of the traits, but he's not as good. Obviously, he does have that kind of chaotic bulldog energy, but not as good, obviously. But he is similar. It's a good point. That is one of the reasons I like him. I have that as a type. I just enjoy watching those types of players a lot. Good point. Yeah. Scholes. I kind of consider Scholes an attacker. I know he's not really, but he kind of was, wasn't he? For most of his career. I know he moved back deeper, but he kind of was. Your favorite player is George Best in his prime. Most of you too young to remember. Yeah, I'm sure the vast majority of us never would have seen Best. What I can see of him, he would easily be among my favorite players as a stylistically. Yeah, Roy Keane for sure. Roy Keane would be up there. Obviously, aggressive bulldog type of player. I just really loved watching Michael Carrick in a lot of ways. Hendrick watched George Best, yeah. I think we should steal Guler from Real Madrid. Interesting one. I mean, I don't think there'd ever be a chance of doing it, but he is a good, interesting player. Kaká, yeah. I loved the Brazilians. You know, obviously, a lot of them had kind of dominated the international football for a long time in that stretch there. You know, when I was getting into football, so definitely, you know, that was obviously where like Ronaldinho was another like completely in a class of his own as a footballer, just maybe more joyful to watch than anyone I've ever watched. How close were we to getting Gakpo? Pretty damn close. Pretty damn close. I mean, we kind of, I guess, just didn't, but we certainly tried and wanted him, and it was nearly there. Yeah. Musiala to United, he could certainly fit in one of those attacking positions. I don't think he'd be a midfielder, but you know, probably in that playmaker role, I would imagine he'd be good at that. See, Amorim being very successful, he has it all. I agree. I agree. Would I take Tchouaméni? Yes, in a heartbeat. I know he's having some struggles at the moment, but really, really good player. Grimaldo as a left wing back. I mean, I'm sure he'd be decent, but I don't know. I'm still suspicious about the German league, you know? I'm suspicious. The German league it makes me very suspicious. Vinny would be insane. I mean, I think Vinny is a wonderful, wonderful players. Wonderful, wonderful player. Will Project 150 be successful? I don't think we'll win it by then, frankly, but I think we'll get close. I think we'll win other things. Systems are killing individual. Yeah, look, that is for sure part of it. There's no doubt. You know, there's been a lot of talk about that, about systems being reintroduced at too young a level where it's breaking the, you know, the individual, you know, like talent, not talent, but players don't express themselves in the same way, for sure, as a factor. Definitely is something that's changing football. I think United need proven Premier League players for signings in certain positions. Yeah, I would agree, and that's why, like, you know, if you had to ask me one player to sign, I would probably say Anthony Robinson, because I think he'd be amazing as a left. I'm not think he would be amazing as a left wing back. He's probably one of the best in the league, if not the best in that position right now. He's proven. He's physical. He's fast. He's very good. He would make a huge immediate impact on United, and would solve a huge problem. That's who I would sign if you said, "Hey, one player that we need that we could get." That's who I would sign. Like realistic player, I would sign him. I think he'd be great. Yeah, the prices obviously do get crazy. That is part of the difficulty for sure, no doubt. But he would nail that position down and give us a huge solution. Yeah, yeah. I would love to have an American back in the team too. We need better than what we've had. I would love to see us have better than what we've had in terms of Americans at United. No offense, Tim Howard, but holy cow. I don't think Leroy Sané is the right type of player because in his sort of style, I think he'd be more of a wing back. I don't think he'd do that. I don't know. No, look, he had one very good season. Agreed. It's just one, a goalkeeper, two, in general, a very, very middling career for Tim Howard at best. He's a bad pundit too, so yeah, he's a terrible pundit. It's annoying to listen to him. So I would rather have a different American. Did Tenag get English players? I wouldn't say that. I don't think it's about being English or anything like that. How do you think things would have gone if Qatar bought United instead? I think it would have been less. There'd be things that would be different financially, but there would be things that would be much worse in the way that we approach things. I think we would have wasted crazy money. I think Xerxes would be good under Amorim. I think he can. When I look at the position, that one role, I actually think he'd be really good. You didn't realize it was live? You thought it was a normal video? Stuart. There must be a way I can do like, well, I put the thing up this time, the overlay, right? Which I usually only do on my regular videos, but yeah. I give him time. Give Xerxes time. I don't follow any U.S. MLS team. The quality of the play here is just too poor. It's not worth watching. Miguel Gutierrez of Girona is very good as well. Yeah. Do you think the board will allow Amorim to sell players he doesn't want? Yes. Yes. It has the live tag. Yeah, it does. Right. That's what I thought. There is a tag that says live in the bottom. Yeah. Sometimes people do that and it's a replay though, don't they? Like, don't people do lives and then they put like a video or something? I don't know. I feel like people do that. Maybe I'm wrong. What would I buy in January if I were in charge? A left wing back for sure. Yeah, a left wing back. 100%. Without a doubt, a left wing back. Good to see Malacia has a chance. Yeah, hopefully. It's also positional, Avrad. Like we were doing at the start of the season, this false nine. And pressing differently, narrow forwards. I don't know what the fuck we're doing anymore. It certainly doesn't suit him what we're doing now. It's sort of hilarious because like the thing of it, Chelsea, there's two things that happen against Chelsea, right? And they're in the same sequence. Xerxes gets the ball in behind the defense. So not his game. So unbelievably not his game. And I'm not like saying he shouldn't be able to do better with it, but it's so not his strength. But then he does keep the ball, retains it. And then we play a moment where it is his strength, where we have possession around their box. Mazraoui's making that darting, overlapping run. He sneaks right in behind where he'd be right in on goal if Garnacho hits Mazraoui for a cross in, and we don't do it. So it's like we just don't do anything that suits some of these players very often. And that is the biggest problem, where we're playing into people's strengths versus their weaknesses is definitely the biggest issue that we have at United. It's like all backwards. All of it is backwards. Mason Mount in the second 10. Yeah, he could play in the front line for sure. I think he could play in the midfield too, frankly. Chance for Carrera's buyback in January. They haven't discussed it yet with him or anything, but he's they're keeping an eye on it. How long do you think the stadium development would take if they began it? A long time. So, interesting comparison on this, right? The Kroenkes, who own Arsenal, also own a bunch of the sports teams here in Denver. And they just got approved for a whole stadium regeneration project around the basketball team, the Nuggets, around their stadium in downtown. Very similar in essence to the scope of the project. It's a lot of a longer project because they're actually going to build some high-rises, apartments, things like that as well. It took 3 years to get approved, and it's a 20-year project. It's going to take a while. This whole thing on Old Trafford and the stadium regeneration, this is going to take a while. And I would say, you know, the problem is we're years past when it should have started. Unfortunately. But it's going to take a while. Yeah, and they just won the NBA championship with the Nuggets a year ago, yeah. Look, no, yes, no, it's, yeah, right? Yeah, yes, yes, yes. Stan Kroenke also owns, the LA Rams and SoFi Stadium, yes. Which is amazing, amazing stadium. So he's been doing huge investing on rebuilding on stadiums and things like that and regenerating areas, but it takes a long time and it's very, very expensive. Yeah. So just something to consider. Do you like watching American sports? I'll catch up with basketball here and there for sure. Great stadiums, but Emirates is bang average. Yeah. No, Kroenke is. I'm not saying he's a good guy, but he certainly is investing a lot of money into these stadiums. All of that. He looks like a movie villain. Oh, I'm definitely not a Rockies fan. Robinson or Alvaro? I would take Robinson. I think he's a lot better. Need to remember to sack Rude and play Rash for 90 minutes. Well, you would be hated in St. Louis, right? I mean, taking the Rams away. I mean, God, you can't really blame anybody, right? I don't want to start a thing, but hold on, I just want to check something here. I was trying to see something. I thought people were sharing this. Now I don't see it anymore. There we go. Hold on. Yeah. This is to me not okay. One second here. Let me make sure I do this right so I can share this. So we're talking about this thing with the switching, right? This Garnacho issue. Here. That's right before they switched. There's a couple other things that have gone round about this too. I'm very concerned by that. I don't understand it. It's very, very weird. He asked, I think, 2 or 3 separate occasions to switch sides. I don't understand that. I don't understand why we would go with that either. But that's where I get really confused. People going, you know, about Rashford's attitude or effort or things like that, because he does it without complaint. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. I don't know why the tail's wagging the dog, especially a 20-year-old. That's, to me, is you're dead. You allow that to happen in your dressing room. You allow that to happen on your pitch. You allow that to happen with your team. You're dead. It's over. Tubbs, let's get a Tubbs spam in the chat, please. Can you guys spam for Tubbs $2 donation? You don't have to. Thanks, Tubbs. Hope you're well. Like, regardless of who's playing, I don't think you allow that. Doesn't really make any sense to me. I think you're in trouble when you start doing that. Yeah, after 20 minutes. Especially because I thought we were playing well before that 20 minutes. That is just... But I put it... Someone needs to sort this out. You know what I mean? Like, someone needs to sort this out. That's all I'm saying. Like, rather than rather than, like trying to get it too much on the player, someone has to sort this out. Good point, Daniel. That's really interesting. Someone has to sort it out. Someone has to take charge of these things. Someone has to put the discipline on players and things like that. Yeah, that's an interesting point, Daniel, about Thierry Henry. Yeah, very weird, Michael. Very weird indeed that since the Porto game, Rashford's not played in his favorite position. Very weird indeed. Any chance of us signing Jokeres even if we keep Hoyland? I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't hype up Garnacho at all. In fact, I don't hype up our players that much at all. I support them. I rarely hype them up. I rarely do, actually. I rarely go on and about how, they're going to, after a game, how they're like the best in the world or anything crazy like that. But as a fan base, I think there's been, here's the truth. You want the honest truth of it? A lot of the Garnacho stuff has been the same anti-Rashford stuff. A lot of the push from certain big accounts to hype him up has been subtle messaging. Probably I've read, but it has been a lot of subtle messaging from the same people who are trying to do so in order to push down on another player. And what I'm talking about is I'm talking about the things going over the top, not just like supporting. But there's been a lot of very, very weird and obvious over the top stuff that is being used as as coverage to push down on another player. It's so obvious too. It's so readily apparent, that that there's been this push from certain people trying to create a conflict between the players. And quite frankly, it's working because unfortunately these kids use social media. These people use a lot of social media and they see it. And it works. It works. It does, unfortunately. And that's one of the biggest things that they've got to sort out. Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that Amorim has to sort out, I think, as well, in terms of locker room dynamics. But that's one of his strengths. That's why I said it's on the players if you don't work out under Amorim, period. Because I know he will sort that out, and I know how strong he is on building that positive culture and those locker room dynamics. All right, I think I'm gonna end it here. It's been an hour and a half. I'm gonna get to work again today. So yeah, thank you all. Hope you have a good rest of your day. Tomorrow I'll do a pre-match. We'll do a watch along for the Europa League, and then a post-match, and then Friday we will do another live ahead of the game at the weekend, and then we'll see what comes up during the break if there's anything much to discuss. Hopefully, once Amorim gets going, there's a lot to go. Hopefully, there's a lot to go. So, okay. Thank you, guys. Have a good rest of your day. I'm going to try to work and get out early so I don't have to deal with too much snow and probably have to shovel at home again. Okay. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.